then the Chiefs respond with the big hits of their own.
Now,
Good Chiefs support at the stadium today.
let's go! News, views, and behind-the-scenes chats from Sandy Park. This is the Exeter Chiefs podcast with Rhino and Bentos.
Welcome to podcast number 4. And we've got a lot to cover in this podcast, Bentos.
We most certainly have, Rhino, but I'm just pleased that we're on to number 4. We're doing well, aren't we?
We are. The club's still approving of this.
I believe so.
We've got lots to talk about then. We've got to look forward to Saints this weekend. We need to talk England, having today or yesterday been confirmed as Six Nations champions.
Yes.
We need to talk about the Falcons game and
Yes.
that first half. And we've got some guests. And our guests on this podcast come in the form of a former Chiefs captain, club legend.
I'm going to say that, yeah.
Well, he's on the board, even though he claims to have never seen this board of the past captains and legends. Please welcome to the podcast, Andy Maunder.
Yeah, well,
Good evening.
we're doing
Good evening.
a round of applause, yeah.
Thank you very much. A leg end, maybe. I'll take a leg end, not a legend.
But you can't have Andy Maunder without the other one. The fast emerging future legend in Jack Maunder. Welcome, guys. Thank you for agreeing to do this. I know it took some hassle of you on Twitter, Jack, and some hassling of your dad. So let's kick off by talking about the game on the weekend.
Yes.
And that first half. What do you make of it, Bentos?
My feeling was, I had a chat with Ali Heifer, who he felt we left a lot of points out there. I think there was possibly a little bit of complacency, maybe arrogance entered into it, that we were playing the team second off the bottom. We're second in the league. We're at home. We don't lose very often at home. It's going to happen. My feeling was that there was a few too many offloads early in the phase count. What do you reckon, Jack?
I completely agree with that. I think if we kept the ball for a bit longer, we would have scored a lot more tries. And I think with the offloads, I think we concentrated on the offload too much and not dominating that contact area before we offloaded.
Yeah, you could see the last 10 minutes, the conditioning shone through. You know, when they got a lucky break try, we went straight to the halfway line, quick restart, got a line out, and from the resultant pressure, we scored a try. And that was just because they weren't switched on; they were knackered, and you could see their body language. And you felt that in the first half, if we'd have racked up phases and just run at them and said, right, even if I've made a clean break, I'm going to keep this ball and die in the collision, and then we'll score 2 phases later because there's just no one there. But we wanted to throw the $1 million ball. Now, I've played in games where you just get a bit excited and ahead of yourself, and it just needed the coaches just to speak to the guys at the half and say, relax, run through your phases. But I get the stats breakdown. And once you get into the 22, you should be aiming to come away with points. Once you're into the 5, you should always score. And we were on about a 43% conversion rate into 22, whereas they were 75%. We didn't possibly respect that as well as we should. Just keep it, build the phases, it'll come.
Let's have a quick listen to what Stino thought of the performance. He was quite honest after the game.
I know people look at it and go, they're at the bottom of the league and you've got to expect to win. Yes, we've got to expect to win these types of games. Yes, we've got to win our home games if we want to be a top 2 side, even push on and be, top of the league. But you've got to respect everybody, and they came, they played, and they were physical, and we knew they were going to do that, and we're just delighted to come away with the result.
And whilst I was there, I grabbed some audio from Dean Richards. Nice to hear him having a chat about our performance versus their performance. Have a quick listen to this, Bentos.
They showed a little bit more accuracy in attack than we did. They held onto the ball a little bit better than we did, and as a result, probably came away with the results. And if we'd showed that accuracy in attack as we did do in defence, then it'd probably been a different thing altogether.
And I was wandering around the stadium having a chat to people at half-time, and that's what they were talking about. The Newcastle defence seemed to be just solid.
Well, they've done a lot of defending this year, so it's going to be quite good, to be honest.
Bentos, be nice.
We did have a lot of ball. They had to do a lot of defending. A lot of teams are pushing a bit of line speed against us at the moment, and it's just a case of you've either got to play over it or through it pretty much when teams are running that hard at you. I mean, Jack, you're in the changing room. You're getting these team briefings. Is that about right?
Yeah, obviously, I think we got especially surprised when we played London Irish. I don't think we were really expecting that sort of line speed. Obviously, the way we defend, they do attack against it in training, and so we do have ways of playing against different defences. But it is I'd say it is more difficult to play against line speed teams, and if you go through them, we got people to go through them. You know, we got Sam Hill that can go through them. What you saw at the end of the Newcastle game is Steno adapting to it and then putting little chips over the top into the 5 metre and putting pressure on. I think that's the way you've got to go.
Jack, tell us a bit about what you were doing during the game, because you're still there on match days, even though you haven't broke the first team yet. But what's your job on a match day?
So this week I was on Super Saturday. So early on in the morning, if it was about 9:30, we a group of clubs, I think it was Sherborne Club, this came up this week, and then we just take them for little games, and there's a group of 9 or 10 of us, and we all get split off into different sections. So this week I was on offloads. There's a tackle area. There's a tour around the stadium. So the kids get a real experience, and they get player-led coaching, which I think is really good fun. During the game, it's quite good fun actually. We get to sit in the match box and I have to be a match watcher. So Ali Hefner he gives me an area of the game that he wants me to look at.
Yeah.
So this week I had the running game. I just write down my thoughts of where I think that the Chiefs could attack, and where we would get success from, and then at half time I report down to Ali.
How's that for you? Is that quite daunting?
Yeah. Sometimes, especially after...
They were looking quite serious when they walked away from where we were sat on Saturday at half time. How did that conversation go?
It's an awkward knock on the door, I think, sometimes, especially when you haven't had the best half. And they're good. They listen to what we have to say. I was with Lockie Turner this week, so I pretty much...
Bentos knows him.
Lockie.
Yeah,
Lockie-tron, he's my best mate.
He's in the mobile. Is he in the mobile yet?
No.
Bentos makes out he's everyone's friend, but we're finding out he's not.
So yeah, just watching there through their games, and then I put clips together with our academy analysis, and then send them over to him, and then we talk through it and see what will work and if we can come up with a name for it.
Before we move on, so I just want to have a quick listen to some of the fans' reaction at the weekend.
Yes, I think that would be worthwhile.
This is the Exeter Chiefs podcast.
The second half was definitely a lot better.
And what do you think for the result?
Brilliant. Finally.
Good chase in the first half. Probably trying to throw the ball too wide too early. Probably going for the 4-try bonus point. And probably still came out second half trying to do the same thing, but it started to click in the second half. So, and obviously I think Newcastle Falcons probably tired a bit.
The first half was just a shame really, because we kept kicking for the corner and we had to keep going for the 5-yard sort of line out, but it wasn't happening. You should try something different. So it was poor first half. Second half was good, but it was a struggle in the end.
What do you make of having Slade back?
Oh, fantastic. It was good. His leg held up well. I was cringing every time someone hit him.
Yeah.
But it was good. Yeah, it was good. He did very well.
The guys never stopped trying. And that just shows 2 tries in the last 10 minutes. Brilliant. 5 points in the bag.
We actually ground them down, and in the end a convincing win. 32-17 seems very convincing and like it was very one-sided, which it wasn't.
News, views, and behind-the-scenes chat from Sandy Park. This is the Exeter Chiefs podcast.
Hi, my name is Josh. Andy, why do you think the Chiefs have been so successful in recent years? And what are the main changes from when you used to play for the club?
It's a lot more professional, clearly, than it was. I've been retired for 17 years and started playing 13 years before that. So
I'm only 31, and when I looked at Jack's profile on the Chiefs website, born in 97, I felt old.
Yes, you can imagine how I feel. So I think if you go back to those days, the amateur days, the training wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. I sit here and listen about all the analysing that goes on. In a lot of ways, I'm very pleased that all that analytic work wasn't going on when I was playing, because it really wouldn't have been very pretty, I can tell you. The amount of times we got into the 25 and didn't score was an awful lot. To listen to Jack and what he does on a daily basis and the teams do is something that I would have loved, because I always enjoyed the techniques of the game. It wasn't just a case of running out, hopefully not getting beaten too badly physically or by points. And playing with your mates. And you've got great mates all the way through your life. But I actually enjoyed, as the game became more professional, I enjoyed the fact that you could train harder, you could work harder, and that people would give you feedback that wasn't, you lost today and you really were poor, which just doesn't help anybody. So I think, in a nutshell, the professional era has brought speed, excitement, but a lot more knowledge of what it takes to win.
You're listening to the Exeter Chiefs podcast with Rhino and Bentos. Still to come.
what's this? What does it mean league? If you go back and look at the main times that rugby changed, the first time was when they introduced league. Jack's got more kit than the whole club could have dreamt of having in the 13 years I was there.
Exeter Chiefs podcast.
Andy, tell us a little bit about the journey. We were talking, or you were talking with Bentos before we started recording about, you know, where it kind of started to pick up pace for the Chiefs. What league were you in when you first started there? What league were you in when you left? And where was that turning point?
So when I joined, there was no league structure. And I think if you go, that old Jack, if you go back,
Jack,
if you go back and look at the main times that rugby changed, the first time was when they introduced leagues. Before that, everything was a friendly, apart from the occasional cup games. And so when I first joined Exeter, you had to be the best in the area. Devon, Cornwall and Somerset. And maybe a few people would wander down from further afield. But that was really where you wanted to be. And that meant something, because it meant that actually a lot of the players were local and there was a very tight community around it. And then people were brought in from other areas, and poor Jack is looking at Argentinian scrum halves that may be a competitor of his in a few years' time. I didn't have to worry about competition from there. So it was...
And there was a time when Plymouth were better than Exeter.
They were never better than us, no.
Okay, we go. So we're going
to fall out. We're going to fall out very quickly if we take that line of action. They were never better than us.
This is the Exeter Chiefs podcast.
I want to come back to there was a point I was making earlier that there's a lot of guys within the club that were part of the squad that got promoted to the Premiership. Steno, Jesse, Sturge, and they've put a lot on their Twitter, their social media, #originals. And I think that they're certainly original within the professional era of pushing the club from the county ground, they're transcending that. But it seems that your arrival at the club, not specifically yourself, although you are a magnificent player with a great history at the club, but there seemed to be a group of guys that came together at a point that turned a corner from Exeter that at the time were in the doldrums, and was certainly originals in founding a culture that we now enjoy at the elite level.
Well, that's very kind of you. It was a very exciting time at the club because you're right, a lot of new players had arrived. Exeter were losing to local teams and we were getting a lot of grief. There was no money in the club. We never toured. I mean, Jack's got more kit than the whole club could have dreamt of having in the 13 years I was there. I have 3 rugby shirts for my time, and I bought 2 of those from Exeter. So this is where you start. But you had a group that just gelled, and you've got the Baxters, clearly have always been around, but you've got the emergence of the next generation after John. You've got the Pugsleys who are still around. You've got the likes of Andy Green, and there was a time, I think, behind the scenes where the people who were running Exeter said, look, it's make or break time. And they pulled back some of the John Lockyers, Bob Stadden, Phil Holman, bless him, lovely chap, and not with us anymore. But some people who just dedicated their time as players and then came back as coaches and said, look, guys, we've got to pull together. I think they must have known that on the horizon was leagues. And then the league came along, and I tell Jack the story that we were going, I think it was away to Roundhay, but again, hit on the head a lot. And on the way back in the coach, Bob came up to me and we'd won the game at Roundhay, and he said, that is fantastic, Andrew. That means we're in the national leagues. And I had, well, what's this? What does it mean league?
So they didn't tell you before, so you didn't know how important it was?
Well, they might have done, but, no, they didn't.
You've been hit a lot.
But I think, again, that was Bob's way. He was very good on the mental side of things. So at that point, before that point, it was friendlies. You get to the end of the season, and you've been into Wales, and you'd been... So quite a diverse sort of approach, so you had some different...
It was more Cox of the West were the best team down here, as opposed to a structure to how it happened.
That's right, and then the Leeds came along. But one of the things that group did was said, right, we want to be the best in Devon, then we'll attract the best players in Devon, and if people look at us... So the Devon Cup was hugely important to us, and I think we won the Devon Cup 8 years on the bounce.
Sorry, how much was the match fee?
It was about £5, I think. Which was a lot of money. That's 5 pints.
Yeah.
So a lot of money in those days, Jack. It's right with you nowadays.
But this is the thing: is guys who wanted to play for the club paid for the honour to play for the club, and you made the club, because there was a halcyon time back in the late 60s, early 70s that had gone wrong. You've pulled it back round. You've created this culture where actually we want to be the best we can be, but you've also alluded to the fact we want to enjoy what we do as well. The culture of enjoying it, being as well as we can be. I suppose, Nuri, how many coaches would have been involved with you guys?
How many coaches?
Yeah.
2.
There you
Bob
go.
Stadden, and then we had a back. Yeah, 2.
So Jack, how many coaches are involved with the Chiefs now?
Oh, yeah.
15, 20. Easy. And it's just bonkers to think about that.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, another question for Andy.
Hi, this is Steve. Andy, could you tell us about your journey about becoming captain for the Chiefs?
I was young, probably too young. I was young once, Jack, honestly. It doesn't seem like it's possible, I know. But in those days, you were voted in.
I love this story.
You were voted in as a captain. So next season I went along and said, yes, I'd like to be captain, and you stand in front of all your players, and then someone else would stand against you, and you'd go outside with that person and stand outside. Well, yeah, have a fight. I was going to say have a fag, probably. But you'd stand outside sort of whistling and making small talk with whoever it was, and then you'd walk back in, and then you were either voted in or not. You did reasonably well up until Rob Baxter came along, and I decided that at this point, I think I had 2, maybe I definitely had a daughter, and I think Jack was on the way or something. And you've got to remember that you did weights on a Monday night, you trained on a Tuesday night, you trained on a Thursday night, you trained on a Friday night, and you came home, hopefully, very worse for wear on a Saturday night.
And all this while still being in the family business.
And working
full-time.
all day. So, again, that was for everybody, and I'm sure, and still exists now.
Yeah.
Jack going down to Red Ruth, which has been fantastic for him. You know, they work all day and they play in the evening.
Oh, yeah.
But that takes a hell of a toll on you and as an individual. And as you get older, being the captain and doing the selection and things, I just said, no, this is the right time.
Yeah.
And then we had Rob, who was you know, a fantastic captain. He was always going to be a fantastic captain because, again, he was, even back then, you could tell he was a student of the game. So he came over and he took on from myself.
How old was he at the time?
Oh, he's lining himself up already. Can I get in there before Rob
I think
did?
I was 22.
You're 22, are you?
I think I was 22.
You're listening to the Exeter Chiefs podcast with Rhino and Bentos. Still to come.
2 or 3 kilos more on his shoulders. He suddenly looks like a man playing with men, not a boy playing with men. When he puts his shoulder into a contact, he'll tackle people now. When he goes to the line, he'll get through that collision. I don't need to know that if I kick this goal, I'm going to be the top point scorer in the history of the club. The second place team in the country. If you win and the team up first loses, you're top of the league. And we need to play play the way we did at the beginning of the season with a little bit more gusto.
Exeter Chiefs podcast.
Jack, you've had a bit of experience yourself already at a pretty decent level.
Yeah. I was fairly lucky. I was asked to captain
England under 18s.
England under 18s, yeah.
Jack, tell me a bit about the setup at the club and coming through the academy. How has that been for you, and what's it like now being as close as you are to the first team?
It's been a dream come true, really. So I started at under 13s. Dad used to drive me down on Monday nights to Devon SOR. And then after training, I used to do extra scrum half stuff with a guy called Charlie Guppy, who still does work with me now, and my little younger brother. And then you kind of just get into this pathway kind of thing. And then you kind of move on. So that started at 14, and you do weights, and then you have you have your own physio for the first time, which is obviously very exciting. And then we do skills with Ricky Pello, and then you kind of move up. You have games at under 15s and 16s level. You get all these selection processes which kind of go on, and I was lucky enough that I got to do extra scrum half stuff with Ricky Pello when I was much younger.
What about the old man? Do you have any say you did a bit of work with him as well, or?
Absolutely, it's all down to me. I don't know who this Ricky Pello bloke is, to be honest. Is he a scrum half?
This is the Exeter Chiefs podcast.
To stand and look out at your son with a white jersey on, with a rose on it, singing his heart out in the national. I could cry now, actually.
I'm feeling a little bit of emotion.
But also, it's the same emotion when I see Jack get a Chiefs shirt, as it would be now.
Mm-hmm.
But seriously, it is when the first time I see him run out onto a pitch with the Chiefs shirt on, then you want to well up. Because going back to, you were asking questions about a year ago, if you asked all those people what we wanted, what we wanted at that time was to Exeter to survive, to succeed and to grow. And then we wanted a homegrown player to play for England. And that's something that we're all immensely proud of. When I see Jack Noel or Luke or Slady, when I see them run out there, I'm immensely proud of being from Exeter. And I think that is something that the club's very good at, and I think the club appreciates that, that you have to have that sort of feeling, because when your back's against the wall, it's that feeling you need.
70 minutes in, up a hill, in the gale.
Absolutely.
What's the... Getting paid doesn't matter then.
Tweet your question at Exeter Chiefs, #Chiefs Podcast.
Well, to be fair, I had no idea how long I was going to be out. I didn't know what I'd done. I looked down at my leg and thought it was broken, but we didn't know anything else. So we got given a rough time span of 16 weeks, and I managed to get back in 14.
So what do you make of that then? Because it's a quick recovery. He's come back 2-3 weeks ahead of what he was being told was going to happen. What's he been doing? You're around the club.
There was a big investment this year in the Alter G running machine that will wrap around your body, inflate, put a percentage of your body weight to the floor. So I believe it was 2 weeks after a tib fracture with a dislocated ankle, he was on a running machine at 2% body weight or something along those lines. Now, so that it was stable.
So you're trying to say Paul Slady was limping on a treadmill?
Yeah, with a physio stood next to him saying, physiologically, you're okay to do this.
One thing Rob Hunter was saying was that the Chiefs are famed for people going off but coming back stronger. And that's certainly how Henry was looking at the weekend.
Start of the show. It's not an injury, it's an opportunity. And you just got to. That's certainly the case. I maintain that for Slady in the moment it must have been catastrophic and the worst thing that could have happened. But in the big picture, there's 2 or 3 kilos more on his shoulders. He suddenly looks like a man playing with men, not a boy playing with men. When he puts his shoulder into a contact, he'll tackle people now. When he goes to the line, he'll get through that collision. And I'm excited to see how much further he can push on.
We need to talk about the Saints game in a moment, but we can't let this podcast pass without talking about our friend Stino. As he put it, he was our guinea pig and our first guest on this new project. But he passed a milestone at the weekend, and I'm going to dedicate a minute of him chatting actually here, so you can have a cup of tea, Bentos, and we'll have a listen to our Irish friend.
I think I said to you before that I didn't want to know about it, and it was in the papers and everything this week that there was 6 points. Yeah, and obviously delighted to get it. It was obviously a very good record that Appy had set, and I'd like to thank him for his kind words that he said during the week as well, which I have seen. But ultimately, yeah, I am delighted to get past that, but now I can put that to the back of my mind and hopefully can get a few more points along the way.
We had a laugh and a joke coming up the stairs there about Dolly putting it right under the post. You couldn't have got an easier kick.
Yeah, no, I had practice during the week, and in my practice session yesterday, I was definitely practicing for the mental approach, because I was wondering what sort of kick it would be to get that record, and that shouldn't be the way you think, but I'm human, and it was definitely in my thoughts, and thank Phil for putting it down directly under the post, and I couldn't really miss that one. So, but yeah, obviously glad to get past that.
Bentos, when we were talking to Stino, and we actually edited this out of the podcast, when I asked him about the Appy record, you said, no, we don't talk about that.
Yes.
What can you tell me a bit about why that is and what that is around rugby? Because he was referring to it then of trying to avoid media and didn't really want to know about it. Does it play on you psychologically?
It's mental set. Look, I'm stupid, so I wouldn't think about it. I think we should ask our guests, to be honest. I mean, when you've got... Would you want to know about a landmark that's coming up, or would you rather just focus on your game and your process?
No, definitely not. No. You don't want to know about any landmark or anything like that. You don't want to take anything away from the focus of doing your job for the team, I reckon. I just think anything that's individual, put aside, anything, you don't want to do anything differently in a game. And the way Stino's been going, why would you want to do anything differently that he's doing?
Yeah.
So I think any landmark like that, you just park it and then get on with the job at hand.
It's about process. So this is what I do. I kick a goal. I don't need to know that if I kick this goal, I'm going to be the top point scorer in the history of the club, because that's all about me. And I obviously fantasise about being a goal kicker.
Stino doesn't think about it, and Bentos thinks about it daily.
But I think that's pretty much the head and tail of it. It's the we, not the me.
You should have thought about records even more. You missed out 1 cap for 150, and wasn't it 1 try for 50 tries?
Yeah, but
you should have thought about it a tiny bit more.
No one.
You would have looked a little bit better because you could have helped.
No one told me. I didn't know I'd done 149. I remember that's league games. That doesn't include friendlies, playing against Llanelli and Morgan.
Moving back to today and talking about the mighty Chiefs marching on, temporarily top of the league on Saturday for a while before Saracens played over in New York against London Irish. And this Sunday is big. Jack, what sort of preparations happening?
Start tomorrow preparations, review the game, then train with the first team, and we all do the analysis together, and we do the review and the preview all together. Obviously, like you said, to become more studious of the game.
It's also good that the players do the review and the preview, so it's player led. It's not an autocratic coach. Yeah. This is what you must look at.
So heading towards this weekend, then Bentos, what do you think? Rob and the other coaches will be saying, and what sort of prep will need to be done to make sure that is a win at home at Sandy Park?
I'm gonna throw it out there. Since the loss to Saracens, we've just been a little bit off colour.
We saw that in the Sale game, saw that in the Irish game, definitely saw that at the weekend in the first half.
The key point is just to say, look, guys, just have a look where you are and start playing with the aplomb and the belief. You're the second place team in the country. If you win and the team up first loses, you're top of the league, and we need to play the way we did at the beginning of the season, with a little bit more gusto, build the phases, play with the tempo. We don't have to force things. We can be comfortable going at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 phases of play because we're fitter than anybody else. And the longer the ball's on the field, the better we do. And it's 6 games left. Business end of the season. Now, I won an A-League and I've won some promotions at the lower levels, but these boys now are at the top level of the game. And we're looking at Premiership semi-finals. We're looking at European quarter-finals. I don't have the experience to say it. This is uncharted territory for me.
Well, we look forward to the weekend, and we'll be back here soon to review that and have a chat with another guest if Bentos can pull off his contacts that he claims he has. And we thank you very much, Jack and Andy, for coming in. How's the injury going, by the way, Jack?
It's good, thank you. Got an operation on Wednesday, so got that booked in. And then start the rehab, and And
will that affect any England activity in the summer?
Hopefully not. I'm hoping Steve can work his magic. But I'm getting the best treatment I possibly can, and hopefully there's a World Cup in England at the end of the year. Fingers crossed, and picking up 4-leaf clovers all the time and trying to get as much luck as I can to get involved.
Well, best of luck, and don't forget us when you've been named in the Chiefs first team squad, because we want to talk to you, and don't forget us when you get a call from Eddie Jones, because we'll definitely want to talk to you about that as well. Cheers. And thank you very much, Andy, for coming in to chat on the podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Your behind-the-scenes access to Sandy Park with Rhino and Bentos. Thank you. The Exeter Chiefs podcast.